Boom. We are alive, ladies and gentlemen, on our constant adventure to understand all the unique and valuable things that are going on in the crypto and DeFi sector. We have a wonderful guest today, one of the founders of the Mercurial Finance project. Now, we've been talking about this one recently, so Ming, I'm super stoked to have you on the show. How are you doing today?
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Yeah, happy to be here too.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. One of my favorite things is going down this rabbit hole of learning new things. And when I saw your guys' project, it started to make a lot of sense to me. You did a really good job in your light paper, making these complex ideas come across quite simple. So right from the get-go, maybe let's just introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about the background that you've had and some of the companies that you've worked to get to this point today.
Yeah, so it's my crypto journey has been interesting, right? So I worked with a large number of projects, right? I was the strategic advisor to projects like Blockfolio, Instadet, and Kyber, right? And I was also on the founding team of WBTC and Handshake, right? So essentially, I think I worked with a wide range of projects. I think, yeah, and yeah, I think, and it has been very interesting, right? Being through like a wide range of projects, through a wide range of like market cycles, right? And definitely through a wide range of innovation. Yeah, I think I've been very, very impressed by crypto so far in general. And yeah, so mostly it has been a terrific learning journey for me. Yeah.
Yeah, it's such an interesting space. Things are changing all the time. And, the price volatility often confuses people because you really want to know what the value, I think, of an underlying asset is and kind of almost ignore the price. So, there's a lot of stuff going on in the DeFi sector, and it's a pretty complex conversation. I think most people have not totally started to grasp the implications of what this can do for the sector. So with a project like Mercurial, you see all these new ideas like automated market makers come up. And one of the big problems is this slippage. So can you tell us kind of about the problem in the DeFi sector and how Mercurial is working to solve some of these ideas?
Yeah, I got it. So one of the biggest issues in DeFi today is like capital efficiency, right? Means that okay, so you have a pool of capital, right? How are they being used? So for example, traditionally in systems like Uniswap and whatnot, right? When you put the capital in Uniswap, the capital that stays there, it doesn't actually get used, right? And secondly is that compared to like centralized market making, right? The slippage is very high. That means that you put a certain amount of dollar value in, right? The market value is supposed to be this, but you get a much lower value back, right? It's called slippage. So I think so one of the things that so it's actually I think and the third issue is that today DeFi market makers, right, automated AMMs, what they do is that they do not kind of respond to market conditions, right? So I think what we do is that we want to solve three things, right? Number one, we want to kind of solve the slippage problem, right? Number two is that we want to have we want to kind of like when the capital is in Mercurial, we actually want to use it as efficiently as possible, right? Not just have it parked inside Mercurial, but have it deployed like efficiently, right? To other external platforms, whether it's lending or whatever not, right? Now, and the third thing is about fees, right? It means that like if the market volatility is high, you should get higher fees. The capital providers should get higher fees. And when when market volatility is low, right? Fees should be lower, right? To encourage more trading, right? So I think yeah, so I think these are the three key problems that Mercurial wants to solve actually. And then I mean that is on the more product level, right? And then at the more, I think let's zoom out a bit, right, and talk about kind of like the bigger landscape, right? So we are building on top of Solana, right? And actually, we are actually quite excited. We're actually very excited about Solana, right? We think that Solana is one of the most fastest growing ecosystem, right? We think there's actually going to be a lot of developers and activity happening on top of Solana. And then our goal here really is to build out the stable coin infrastructure for Solana, right? Across the process of like swapping and depositing and minting, right? So I think that is like the bigger picture because we think so. In summary, we think that for a macro picture, right? We think that these features stay. We think that Solana has some extremely unique technical perspectives, right? that will make it suitable for DeFi, right? And we want to build the stablecoin infra for Solana. Yeah. So that's from a bigger picture.
So just for some background here, and again, I'm not super technically savvy. We've got different layer one protocols that are out in the ecosystem right now. I've grown to be a fan of Avalanche. I've definitely grown to be a fan of Solana as well. What are some of the product suites that Solana provides, Mercurial, that kind of set Solana apart and that will help Mercurial grow throughout this?
Oh, you mean for Solana?
Yes.
Got it. So the most interesting thing about Solana, right, is that I mean, and this is compared to other L1s, right? You know, like other L1s like ETH2, like Polkadot, or say the other one. It's like Solana has no concept of different blockchains, right? Now, what does that mean? For ETH2, right? ETH2 they do a system called sharding, right? Sharding essentially means that what happens that you have different blockchains, right? And then you create and essentially ETH2 is not one blockchain but many blockchains, right? So and it's called sharding. And then since in Polkadot has one like big chain, right? Relay chain, and the rest are parachains, right? So similar as well. Let's Polkadot. And yeah, so most other the new generation L1s, they achieve what they do by this thing called like scaling, right? They scale essentially by having many different blockchains, right? And that's the same with Cosmos as well. So the thing about Solana is that you don't do that, right? You basically have one chain, like one blockchain, you know, and then and you achieve scalability that way. And what that means, right, is that you are able to have all the different applications, right? Like Mercurial, like Mercurial, like Radium, or any other protocol comes up, right? All sit in like one chain, right? And that's actually really, really important because like the moment you break it up into different chains, right? For example, if say you have protocol, right? And you're on the first shard, right? I have Mercurial on the second shard. We can't talk, right? Now there's this thing called relay chain, and it wants to help you talk, but it's going to be very, very complicated. Yeah. So I think one of the most important thing for me both as a developer, and also as like a user, and also like an ecosystem observer, right? Is that you are able to have all these different like systems and programs, right, sit in the same blockchain, and I think that's very important. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Solana provides some really unique features, and I've just tried to find some simple investment strategies, usually by looking at communities as well. I think this is such an important part of the conversation. You know, I bought a bunch of BNB back in August, not because I thought it was good technology, because I'm like, well, these guys have a community, and ultimately that's a valuable sentiment. In Solana itself, you know, the FTX team, even though they're not directly related, I love projects like Serum as well. You know, I'm a big fan of these communities that are building. You know, as Mercurial starts to grow, and how can let's say I want to use the Mercurial app, what will this look like on a day-to-day basis?
So I think there are two things to your statement, right? I think you talk about community, right? Yeah, I think certainly that will be one of the big things that we need to do, right? You know, which is to build up a very strong community, right? You know, both on the user front, the ecosystem front, and also the investor front, obviously, right? You know, right? So I mean, I think for Mercurial, I think we had a bit of interesting timing for launch, right? You know, I think we launched kind of like right at we launched at the worst day of crypto in years, right? You know, right? I think so I think yeah, that is before we had a chance to build up any like so basically before we had a chance to build up any real community, right? You know, so I think yeah, so I think it's gonna be interesting. I think but you know, but I'm happy because we are now like for Mercurial, at least we are at the we hit bottom, right? You know, right? So we hit bottom. So so one way up. I think. Yeah. Anyway, I think that yeah. So I think certainly I think that would be one of the major things that we can do at Mercurial. Yeah, which is to build out a strong community in terms of users and in terms of investors and also in terms of ecosystem players. Yeah. So that I think that's where we're at, right? Yeah.
Yeah, this drop represented probably one of the greatest opportunities to start investing again in this sector. Now, it's always a tricky one because people get scared, and that's usually the moment when it's the best time to be making investments. Like generally speaking, out of all the big investors you can study, everyone's like, well, you look for irrational fear in the markets, and you're right. You guys launched in one of these irrationally fearful moments in the market. It's quite unique. So,
but it's interesting though. It's interesting though because the queue is moment, right? I think right as we speak right now as that moment we are bouncing back, right? And obviously not quite back to where we were and stuff, But I think that the fact that we bounced back so fast represented means that people really believe in crypto, Like
yeah.
we are at this moment whereby the people that believe in crypto are really really believing it, right? Yeah. So I think I think it's good. I think it's really good actually. Yeah. So for Mercurial, I think yeah, we need to do the same, like really start building out that base of believers and people. Yeah. I think yeah.
Yeah, I think you guys have done a great job so far, and you're surrounding yourself with all the right players. I think you guys are going to be very successful. And I agree. I think we have a lot of upside still left in this market, and significantly different than from back in 2017 is there's the broadness of what this technology can do has really been opening up the platform itself. Like the Bitcoin being able to potentially replace the dollar or just a monetary collateral layer itself, the DeFi sector has become a lot more better understood. Like with things like ETHLend back in 2017, or I don't know if you remember Fork Delta or Ether Delta from back in 2017 as well. These are like horrible versions of the market makers or the club, like what Serum has today. I think in general, we've just made so much progress that a lot of the big players are recognizing how much potential is still here. So, again, I want to kind of touch back into what Mercurial can do as like I almost look at them as like little like chess players, maybe because I'm thinking of Rook in my mind, but somewhere where I can put like a collateral layer. So how can I use the Mercurial finance application? What does that look like?
That's a great question. So basically, I think that the way it's quite simple actually. It's like as more and more stable coins come to Solana, right? Whether it's right now actually we have a lot already. We have WBT, we have we have solid wrapped USDC, we have wormhole wrapped USDC, we have native USDC, and then all that kind of stuff, right? And then I think we might see more versions of things come onto Solana, right? Whether it's UST or whether it is algorithmic stable coins, right? Whether it is like so basically we're going to see a whole flooding of stable coins, right, come into Solana, right? And we will see a lot of BTC packs as well come to Solana. So here I think our goal right now is very simple, right? Number one, if you want to swap any stablecoin, right? For example, you just wrapped wrap USDC, you just brought USDC from Ethereum to Solana, right? So we want to be the best place for it, right? For you to kind of convert it to native USDC, right? Or for example, you just brought, or for example, you just minted, a USD, right? From some protocol, right? So we kind of want to be the best way to kind of for you to change it to anything as well. So that's the first thing we do, right? We want to be like the best place for you to swap stables on Solana. That's the first thing, right? The second thing, the second thing that we do is that we also want to be the best place for you to deposit your stables on Solana, right? So for example, say you have USDC, you're not sure to do with it, right? Like Mercurial wants to be the best place for you to put that liquidity, right? Yeah, that's the second thing that Mercurial wants to do, for you to and you on it, right? Initially you will earn from Mer, and you also learn from swaps, right? But over time we want you to earn from like other protocols and interest and everything, right? So the second thing, yeah. So yeah, and as we go along, we're going to expand our system, because our goal is really to become the stable coin infrastructure for Solana, right? And stablecoin, I think stablecoin infra is actually going to be very important, right? So that's what Mercurial to do, become the stablecoin infrastructure.
Is there a way that other projects like Serum will be able to utilize the Mercurial infrastructure as well?
Yeah, so 100%, right? So I think we aim to. So basically, anyone that anyone that builds. I think there are three main category of apps that can utilize Mercurial, right? I think the first category is our wallets, right? You know what, like we'll be publishing our documentation as well. So kind of like wallets will be able to kind of like read our API and leverage our swaps, right? And same thing, same thing for any other protocol, DeFi protocol that needs that functionality, right? Of performing swaps in the system, they can use it as well. And the third thing that we will have essentially will be the like other markets, right? The other like we'll be tying into other markets, right? So essentially what we'll be able to do is that we'll be able to post, like for example, like we both I think both on our end we'll be able to post orders to Serum, right? And also someone can run arbitrage systems, right? To kind of like balance out any market on Serum and ours, yeah. So yeah, definitely. I think there are a lot of ways we can do integrations, with wallets, with other protocol apps, and with markets experience. Yeah.
Yeah, great. That's always, again, because I'm not super technically savvy, how I'm always looking at this is how do these pieces of different financial infrastructure start to communicate and work together, especially with projects like Serum on Solana. I just start to see this almost like a suite of ideas being built together that are kind of functioning almost seamlessly to the average user. Whereas even still right now, DeFi is a rather complex thing for most people to play around with. It's not super easy to integrate into. It's not super like the interface isn't always as simple as it feels like it could be. So I feel that this stuff becomes almost a seamless integration in the future. So Ming, you guys have a great team, and one of the things we're always interested in is well, who's
real quick, is that like
yes.
I agree with you. I think like seeing things, I think that's a really good perspective, right? Because I feel like most people try to think of things as they try to think of things in a technical way or anything, right? But I think that is not quite accurate. I think that what you are doing here, like seeing everything as a jigsaw, right? Seeing how Bitcoin, what role Bitcoin plays, Ethereum play, and how they all fit into like one puzzle, right? Yeah, I think that's actually it's more like an earthquake. It's more like the Earth, right? The Earth. The Earth. We have these tectonic plates and they shift around, right? Right? So it's like. So I love that perspective, right? I would change that to be more. I think I'll change it to be something like the Earth with its tectonic plates, and then so you have these plates that are constantly moving, right? And then when they move and stuff, earthquakes happen. Yeah, I think that's kind of what happens. Yeah. But overall, I love the idea. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, I try to simplify from my kind of base perspective to see how it all
I
works,
love
because
it.
a lot of it, I've seen some of the evolutions of these older projects move in and how they develop over time, and a lot of what had been missing was the general user interface. Again, kind of making things a bit simpler for the average user like myself. So one of the other things that we always find really important is the team that's been building it. And you guys have a great team that's working together. Do you want to tell us a little bit about some of the other characters that you're working with and their background as well?
Sure, sounds good. So so I think as mentioned, for myself, I think I have worked in a wide range of crypto projects, and then for my co-founder Xiong, he is working on he was a founding engineer at Envoy, right? envoy.com, envoy.com. Which is one of the major which is a major Silicon Valley project, right? So he was a founding engineer there. It's funded by XTZ, and it is it's one of the soon to be unicorns in that space. So he was also a Y Combinator alumni, and also an expert alumni. So yeah, I think he has worked a lot in the technology field, right? And he's actually one of the best engineers that I personally know. right? Yeah, so very very happy to working with him on Solana, because again, Solana is actually a very like technically involved project, right? So yeah, it's actually really good to have him there. Another one of my co-founders is Loy, who is the founder of Kyber, right? Yeah, so he's also a founder. He's a co-founding advisor at Mercurial. Yeah, so and then we also have Andrew, who is one of the founding engineers at Kyber, and just an amazing guy at math, right? Yeah, and on top of that, we have two amazing like Solana engineers, right? Basically Paul and PA, right, who have joined us recently. I think they are both hardcore Solana developers. They know a lot about Solana tech and Solana stack, right? And I think I think so. And we also have a few guys joining us from Binance, and also from Grab, which is like the Uber of Southeast Asia. Yeah, so I think so we have a pretty experienced crew at our team, I would say, that goes from that brings expertise from technology, from traditional technology, from crypto, as well as Solana. Yeah, so I think that is kind of like the team we have. Yeah.
Yeah, so we've got an article that we just finished writing, and this podcast will be in the article. And when we were doing our research, you guys have a top-notch team. So this is kind of an off the side question, but I figured I would ask, just again because I don't know that much. When you're writing on Solana versus say Ethereum or Avalanche or Cardano, is it different coding? Are you using like how is the structure of the code different? I know it's kind of not a question about Mercurial specifically, but I figure while we're here, maybe you can help me learn something.
Of course, of course. Um, okay, so essentially, okay, the way to, I mean, it is very confusing, right? But I'm actually excited now because I love this topic, right? So okay, so essentially, I think we have a number of, how's my sound, by the way? Is it okay? My sound?
Yeah, sounds great.
Very cool, awesome. So I think the way the way it works is that computing works in many stacks, right? Many stacks, right? So you have the base stack, which is the hardware you work on, right? And then you have the base language, which is often like C or some like very low level language. And then you have a virtual machine, right? And then you have the execution layer, right? Which is like kind of like and then you develop it. So basically, basically most developers develop on top of this layer, right? At the highest level, right? Layer. So what that means is that like every system at the bottom layer is quite different, right? For example, BSC is a very different system, like from say Ethereum. Like BSC, the BSC nodes run a very different system from Ethereum nodes, right? And so on and so forth. And Solana runs a very different system for other things. So yeah, so all these things have very different, very different systems at the bottom layer, right? But what they do is that, for example, but the reason why writing on BSC and writing on Ethereum and writing on Polygon is so similar, right? Okay, so they're all very similar because they all run this thing called EVM, right? Ethereum Virtual Machine, right? So because they run this thing called EVM, what they do is that developers can very easily just write code, right, for Ethereum and switch some parameters and be able to use it for BSC and whatnot. And that's the reason why you see that extremely rapid like movement, right? It's like, okay, the moment like when Polygon launches, wow, you have like all the Ethereum apps. You immediately, right? You have like Uniswap on Polygon. You know, all these things on Polygon, right? Right? And the reason is because they're running the same VM, right? Virtual machine. So that's easy. Now, contrast it to something like Polkadot or Solana, right? Now, they run their own VM, right? And they run their own stack, right? Entire stack, right? So what it means is that like you actually write language, you actually write programs in a very different way, right? For example, the main language in writing on Solana is Rust, right? Which is and compared to on Ethereum Solidity. Yeah, so the language is very different, the compilation is very different, the code structure is very different, the whole architecture is very different. In fact, on Solana, we don't even have contracts, right? There's no such idea of smart contracts, right? On Solana, you have things like programs and accounts, which is very, very different, Yeah, so I think, and on Polkadot, you have something else. It's very different as well, right? Avalanche is interesting because Avalanche I mean, I personally love Avalanche, right? I love him. I think great guy. We hung out a few times. The way Avalanche works is that you have different subnets, right? And every subnet can run their own VM, right? And so you have one subnet that can run EVM, right? And another subnet that can run a completely different thing, right? Because in Avalanche, what's important is the consensus layer, right? Less of the VM layer. So they can't structure it that way. Yeah. So I think for Avalanche you can have a subnet, right? And the subnet can just run EVM code, Yeah. So so I think so I hope that's not an overly complicated answer.
No, you did a great job. Thank you. That helps too, because I'm still putting all these pieces together as things go on. Anyways, I don't think there's an end to the learning here. So thank you.
So I think yeah. So in summary, the easiest way to understand it is that okay, every system operates in stacks, right? And every stack is usually very, very different, right? But you can implement an abstraction called like virtual machine, and that's why and that's the reason why you see it. That's why the reason like EVM, Polygon so similar, and while developing on Polkadot and Solana is very, very, very different, and it's very, very interesting because what we're going to see is that we're going to see very unique applications, come on Solana as well. I think because right now we are still kind of building the basic blocks of Solana, but but I think we are actually going to see like new innovations coming on top of Solana. Yeah, because the stacks are different. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun to see the growth of these things. Again, because I'm not technically savvy, it's good to go over and kind of rehash some of these ideas. I had the pleasure of having a chat with Emin about Avalanche just the other day, and I'm always trying to increase my understanding of what's taking place, because I'm not well situated from a tech level, but I want to learn as much as possible. And again,
it's fun, right? You mean it's fun, right?
Yeah, he's a fun guy. I had a great time. Hopefully he comes and visits Costa Rica. I look forward to we could all hang out again more easily. I missed Singapore. I miss Singapore too. So I look forward to when things are easier to travel and hang out in person again. But for now, this is as good as it gets.
We had hot pot in Singapore. Yeah. Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, my next question here, Ming, is again, just kind of more of a rounded question. So as Mercurial grows, what's the roadmap for the next like 1 to 5 years look like? What type of product developments and maybe even new features might be added to the product as we go?
I mean, I think as mentioned earlier, right? DeFi is a jigsaw puzzle, right? Right? So right now we are focused on building the best stable coin swaps, right? And ideally stablecoin EU as well, right? Yeah, I think because we think that those form foundational pieces of DeFi, right? But I think moving forward, I think I think it's going to be interesting. I think that it really depends on how the whole DeFi space evolves, right? I think on Solana, I think in particular, I think Solana actually has very, very, very different technical properties, right? And then as a result, you have very different developers as well, So the question becomes, what can you build on Solana, right? So yeah, so I think we are definitely looking forward to it. Yeah, I think it is so for this year we're definitely focusing on building up what we call dynamic vaults, right? Whereby we combine low slippage swaps, dynamic keys, and dynamic capital allocation, right? To kind of provide the best experience, right? For users to handle stables on Solana. Yeah, I think that is going to be our goal. And I think I'm actually very excited. I think we're going to do a great job. I think in terms of the future roadmap, yeah, I think it really depends on what the Solana ecosystem needs, right? Yeah, and so yeah, I think we'll have to evolve based on that. Yeah.
No, that's a great point. Like I think even in general for me, watching some of this stuff evolve, it's starting to do things that I would have not been able to guess. So maybe even broader spectrum that question, like what are some of the kind of cutting edge things in the DeFi sector that you've seen that you think is the most exciting too? Because you're pretty close to a lot of really intelligent people building a lot of really interesting things. Just I mean, again, aside maybe from Mercurial, what's some of the most exciting stuff you think that's going to come or that hasn't been created yet or that's being close to being solved in the areas that we have problems in?
I think that broadly speaking, there are three categories, right? You know, three key categories of problem to solve, right? You have the first thing you have is you know, you have all these different chains, right? Avalanche and like Solana, everything, right? You know, like how do you help them talk to each other, right? How do you do better crushing communication, right? I think that's the first problem to be solved. And the second problem is mainstream adoption. How do you actually get the mainstream users, right? Not just investing in crypto, right, but actually using crypto, right? We're still quite far from that, right? You know, I think we are probably at the point where everybody knows of crypto, and we're probably going to be, I think, give it a few years, we're probably going to be at where most people are going to invest in crypto, right? One way or the other. But I think the next big problem is how do you use crypto, right? And the third thing is integration, right? Of DeFi and DeFi integration into the wider world, right? You know, because right now DeFi still lives in its own bubble, right? You know, we still live in our own world, right? You know, pretty much. So the question is, how do you kind of like have DeFi, right? You know, work with the other systems, right? Yeah. So yeah. So I think those are actually some of the most exciting things I think happening, right? I think we're going to see a lot of like very innovative cross chain stuff happens, right? I think most people like to think of a world about, oh, Solana is the only chain, Ethereum is the only chain, and whatever not. I don't think that's the case. I think what's going to happen is that there are going to be many chains, right? And there are going to be some main chains. I think Ethereum is going to be one. Solana is going to be another one, I think, right? Obviously. That's why we're building on Solana.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. So I think number one is how do we really allow, like, you know, like products and systems, right, to build cross chains, right, in a transparent, secure manner. I think it's the first thing. The second thing would be adoption, right? I think we're close. I think this investment in crypto is very, very important because I think two things important here. The first thing that's important is the idea of stable coins, right? Because because when stable coins are in crypto, right, that presents a medium that users are a lot more comfortable with, right, in using crypto, right? Stable coins are probably the most friendly way, right, for the average person to use crypto, probably, you know. So we think a combination of crypto assets being valuable, UI getting better, apps getting better, and the usage of stablecoins. We think these three things are going to form a virtuous cycle, you know, in which the mainstream users, right, is going to use like crypto more and more, right? Yeah, and the third major area that I think is very exciting is the integration of DeFi into broader finance, right? You know, and I think that is happening in many ways, right? Whether it's crypto.com, where you can use like credit cards, you know, you can trade in the credit card system itself, right, to use the crypto, or whether it is you see a lot of projects that use that they are starting to use they're starting to like borrow crypto and lend out to traditional people, finance people, right? You know, and or whether it is like you have like who knows, right? I'm quite sure that at some point, right, banks will probably buy crypto as investments and use DeFi to get the money out, right? You know, I think that's very possible as well. So I think So I think what I'm most excited about is I'm the most excited about crypto becoming part of everybody's lives, right? And I think to do that in three things: we need cross-chain, we need adoption, and we need integration of finance. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. Well said. Okay, so the last few questions here. What's your thoughts on these algorithmic stable coins, things like Ampleforth or Benchmark? How do they compare to something like, say, a USDT, where ultimately you still have the same built-in fail point, which is that we're trusting the US dollar to have some value, when we've seen all the general change of volatility in, say, like a Turkish lira versus the US dollar versus the British pound. We already know there's volatility within the what we consider the stable coin being based off. How does this compare with an algorithmic stable coin?
Okay, so the way I think about things is simple, right? Is like you have the idea of trust, right? So it's like, I mean, we live in a society where many layers of trust, right? And I think that for all stable coins, I feel like there's this trust involved, right? Which is like whether it's algorithmic, whether it's okay, there are three categories, right? There's the algorithmic ones, there is the packed USD like maker. You also have the tethered ones, right? Like Tether USD and USDC, right? They're supposed to have a one-to-one representation, right? On somewhere, right? I think end of the day, all these coin systems, they trust the US dollar, right? I think that's the first thing, right? We trust that the US dollar still represents the most stable medium of value, right? And I think it's still true, right? I think it's true. I think it's true that the US dollar still represents the most stable value, right? Meaning that I think if I stayed in New York for a while, right? And I think there's this New York called a dollar pizza, right? Right? Maybe one day we will see Bitcoin pizza, hopefully I'm not becoming a Satoshi pizza, or something, right? But so far, Bitcoin is still the dollar index for the pizza, right? Right? So I think that's the first thing. But then if you take a step past that, right? I think by the way, stable doesn't mean the best, by the way. I actually personally I'm all in on crypto, right? I probably have like 2% of my assets in stuff, right? In stable, like in fiat. But beyond that, it's very, very, very different. So algorithmic stable coins, and it is all a matter of supply, right? Algorithmic stable coins, the main thing they bring is that they're able to bring a lot of liquidity into stable coins, in the sense that like you if you are doing a algorithmic stable coin, you are actually never ever afraid of running out of US dollars, right? Actually it's a big problem. I mean, we don't know it, but actually, if you are running a bank today, right, in centralized finance, right, one of the biggest problems in life, right, is US dollars. How do you get enough US dollars, to run your operations, right? And it's a big fucking problem, right? Because can I swear? I'm sorry.
I swear all the time. Don't worry.
Okay, great. Yeah. So algorithmic stable coins, right? The pitch is that we are like a decentralized Fed, right? You can print as many US dollars as you want, right? So when supply gets lower, you can print more US dollar, and then when supply gets higher, you can print US dollar. So that is the pitch for all the algorithmic stable coins, right? That's one thing. The second kind of the second kind of stable coins that we see is the like MakerDAO, right? MakerDAO, right? So for the first one, you're really trusting the market mechanism to work, right? But the market mechanism doesn't really work that way, right? It's not very stable, right? So as a result, algorithmic stable coins are mostly unstable, right? That is like the main thing, yeah. I think the other category you have is like MakerDAO, right? which uses an underlying collateral like ETH or syntactic or whatever not, right? Is to kind of like act as collateral, right? So basically when the collateral, when the value of the underlying collateral falls below a certain point, right? You either get liquidated or you get burnt, right? But you use collateral to mint new stablecoins. Yeah, so I think those are pretty good. And definitely probably the best balance today we have between like stable coins that are not too stable and packed, right? Yeah. And the last category we have is obviously like USDC, obviously the packed ones, right? Tether and whatnot. Those are actually really good systems. I mean, for as mentioned earlier, I worked in WBTC, right? So it's a similar idea, right? Basically, you take USDC, you lock it up. Sorry, you take BTC, you lock it up, and you mint new wrap BTC, right, on Ethereum. So USDC works very similar, right? You have things that you have people that you are trusting the centralized party in like for example in USDC case, there's a company called Circle, right? That basically you are trusting the holder US dollar in the bank, right? Yeah. So yeah, I think there are many kinds of stable coins, and I think different people are different. Some people they will never hold USDC, right? Some people they only hold USDC, you know. And some people they are willing to play makers. I think the algorithmic stable coins, like DSD and ESD and all these things, I think and Wolf, I think they have a lot of money making potential, right? Because you're literally printing money, right? You know. But they're not very stable yet, right? Yeah. So I think for our end, for Mercurial, I think our goal is to kind of like be like create the most efficient swapping mechanism, right, for all these stables. You know, yeah. So whether you hold one stable or the other, it doesn't matter for us, right? You know, you have an extremely liquid place to kind of like swap it, right? So that's our goal. Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, so it really depends on what level of trust you want to play in, you know. Yeah, and what you trust. Do you trust the market mechanism to hold the value? Do you trust the peg mechanism, which is for maker, or do you trust the centralized party, right? So depending on where you trust, you have a stable. Yeah.
Yeah, it's I was just as a sideline to explain. So the value of stables in my mind, especially in the DeFi sector, is that underlying collateral layer where I was chatting with a friend who had a bunch of Chainlink in an Aave loan, and he was, as the market was dropping, because I know, the 50 to 60% change in your underlying collateral layer, if you have any of these loans taken out, you're all of a sudden shoveling capital into the loan so you don't get liquidated effectively too, right? So the stablecoin offers that nice center for the DeFi. We're like, okay, so no matter what happens to my underlying collateral, I'm not going to have a fluctuation with inside the market. Yeah, it's a lot easier.
Actually, one of the interesting things is that like the reason why you see dumps so fast and peak so fast, right, and bounce so fast is because of stablecoins, right? It's like when all your money is in crypto, right, and when your money on crypto is on stablecoins, right, you're actually able to just like take it out and take it in very, very, very fast, right? You know, right? Yeah. So I think that's what's happening. I think, yeah, I think stablecoins represent a very, very important part of the DeFi space.
Yeah, and the automated market makers, you go on CoinGecko. I like CoinGecko, I'm not knocking them, but you go on and where you can look at the market cap. You're like, oh, they've got a $530 million market cap, and you look at Sushi Swap and Uniswap or something, and there's only like $1 million of liquidity on either side of the trade. As soon as someone goes to turn that door, like there's no way everybody's getting out of that fire exit. So the market just basically collapses on the other side of the trade. Okay, Ming, we're gonna leave off with two non-crypto questions in any way, shape, or form. What's your thoughts on the Pentagon releasing these UFO footages recently? You got any thoughts on that?
I hope they're real. Yeah, I really, I really hope that aliens are visiting us. I really hope so. Yeah, I think that'd be so cool. You know, then, crypto changed our world, right? You know, very, 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 very significantly, right? But if they're actually UFOs, fuck, I'm telling you, wow, it will be so world changing for me. Oh my God, I love it. I mean, that's the reason why we're in crypto, right? Because we love change, right? You know, and there's no bigger change, right, than if there were actually aliens, right, coming to visit us. You know, that'd be amazing. You know, wow, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, and the technology. I want to be able to fly from here to Singapore as fast as it looks like they can. That would be fantastic. We'd be
And
doing this
that's
in
what we're
person.
talking about, right? You're everywhere, right? You know, everywhere Uranus, you know, like when anywhere, Mars, anywhere, you know, yeah. Then we went to wait for Elon Musk and go to Mars tomorrow, you know. Yeah. Imagine going to Mars, right? You know, like okay, imagine imagine now we take 1 hour, right, to go from we take like 13 hours to go from like Costa Rica or Singapore, right? Now imagine you take like 1 hour to Mars. That'll be amazing, you know? Right? Yeah.
Okay, so the last one here is an open-ended question. What's the thing you find most interesting outside of the crypto sector and aliens?
Actually, I'm not that big. I'm actually not that big into aliens. I don't think they're real, but I hope they're real. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't believe in them, but I
Yes.
hope in them. Yeah.
Yes, no, we it would be a great. I have no idea either. The Pentagon releasing images of being like, hey, well, we don't know what these things are. The tech seems to be pretty interesting. That's what I mean. Mostly, more than the aliens. I'm like, I want that tech. Like, I mean,
Yeah,
great
yeah, for
if we
sure.
can hang out with them, but they clearly may have figured something out about the world of physics that we don't know. So
Yeah.
outside of crypto, what are you most interested in? Is it music? You have any artists you like?
People. I love people. Yeah. I love people. Yeah. I think yeah, I love people. I love the I love studying people. I love talking to people. I love understanding people. Yeah, I think psychology is super interesting. I think yeah. So I mostly like reading about like whether it is like interpersonal dynamics or whether it's like social dynamics or whether it is like and actually economics is dynamics too, right? I mean economics is like psychology too, right? You know, it's a very interlinked thing, you know, psychology and economics. Yeah, so I am mostly a nerd about technology, about crypto, and about people. Yeah, so I think I find the people stuff super interesting. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, I've had a pleasure chatting with you this evening, Ming. So where can everyone find you? We'll just tell them auditorily. All the links will be written down in the description below, but how do we find you in auditory form? Mercurial.finance. That's MERCURIAL.finance. And anywhere else the Bear family can find you?
Yeah, any bad family, I love it. Yeah, yeah, find us at Mercurial Finance. I think we're on Twitter as well, right? Mercurial Fee, right? That's Mercurial and FI, Mercurial Fi. We are also on Discord, we are also on Telegram, and all these links are our website. Yeah, so I think yeah, we'd love to. I mean, we are a very, very early project. We launched at a very early time, right? So yeah, I think if you are joining us in Mercurial, you are right at the start, like right at the start, right? You know, we weathered a storm, right? And we are right at the start right now. Yeah, so yeah, really exciting. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, all those links.
And by the way, thank you so much for being part of the journey too. Super appreciate it.
Yeah. No,
I'm really appreciate it.
I feel the same as you. Most of the time, I love people. Not always, but most of the time. Actually, if you watch some of my live streams, there's always people that come on trying to shill stuff, and I've just insta ban, ask people asking dumb questions. No more of that. Like, try to keep things quality. And I've had a really beautiful conversation. I've learned some things tonight as well, which I'm always very grateful for.
By the way, I'm very, very sorry if I'm very sorry if I went too much in detail, right? Because I have this problem.
No, that's what the Bear family is for. That's why we focus on quality, longer conversations. Again, you know, early on, I've had conversations with people in like solar, like some of the older shows in 2000, like solar plasma physicists. My dog's talking to me in case you're wondering what the noise is, but I like these long conversations. So don't worry, we could go on longer. So what we'll do is as things develop with Mercurial Finance, we'll have you guys back on the show in another few months to see what type of progress you've made.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. And then again, remember to give us a thumbs up, Bear family, if you like this content. All the Mercurial Finance links will be down below. And my dog is having a great time whining in the background, I'm sure.
All right, thanks.
Thank you, Ming. We'll speak again soon.
Bye-bye. And great talking, by the way. Great show. One last thing. Great show. Great energy. And I hope everyone does well. Thanks.
Yeah,
Bye.
I agree. Thank you guys as well.